Landing today from Wahoo is an update to the Element Bolt cycling GPS, which they call the Bolt. Similar to the kicker, the ticker and the snap, Wahoo have chosen to stay with the same name for the update of this little unit here. So what's new? Everything on the screen just there. Starting off with a 64 color screen and an ambient light sensor, more storage on the unit allowing for more maps, full mapping on the unit which allows for on-unit navigation, similar to the ROAM, but a little better as it includes elevation information on the unit itself. There's a USB-C charging port, redesigned buttons that are convex, not concave, like the previous units. There's minor changes to the UI, it has a faster CPU, and it comes in black. A quick summary of the feature sets on the Element units if you're not familiar with these. So a quick run through before diving into some of the details about the updates that have been provided in this unit. Starting off with the Element companion app configuration, so pretty easy to set these things up and configure the screens as you require with either iOS or Android. Smart navigation on the unit with the new mapping, so you can navigate to destinations with turn-by-turn nav straight from the unit. It will also do recalculation of routes and give you turn-by-turn navigation for those. Quick look LEDs along the top for power, heart rate, speed, or turn-by-turn navigation. The color screen makes things easier to identify, especially in map mode. Text and phone notifications as you're out riding. Strava live segments if you're a subscriber to that service. Turn-by-turn navigation with route maps from any service. So no longer do we have to use third parties with provided cue sheets. You can simply dump a route from almost anywhere onto this unit and you get turn-by-turn nav. Workouts, as we've seen with other Element units, there's also some pre-baked workouts there from Team Ineos. There's live tracking, which does work because I managed to find local rider Lindsay B at the cafe yesterday. And there's kicker control, which will do the snap, the kicker, the core, and the kicker bike. Price-wise, coming in at $280 US, 280 euros, 250 pounds, and around 420 Aussie dollars. That's just a little bit higher than the original release price of the Bolt before we saw recent discounts applied in the last 6 to 12 months. Okay, time for some hands-on with this new unit and similar packaging to all other Element units. Full color glossy box and a little GPS in here, stuck firmly. That's it there. More on this in just a moment. Get all the accessories out first and have a quick look at those. So in the box is the new mount, a securing screw which I won't take out just yet, cable ties, a stem mount if you want one of those, and a USB-C cable because this unit is USB-C. Okay, let's get this thing weighed first off. And the Bolt 2 coming in at 69 grams on my scale. Now for reference, the original Bolt coming in at 61 grams and the ROAM 96 grams. And as another reference point, the Edge 830 from Garmin coming in at 82 grams. So the summary there is the new Bolt 2 coming in just a little bit heavier than the original, but there's good reason for that. It's slightly bigger, just a little bit. Okay, with both bolts turned on and side by side, the original here, the new Bolt 2 over here, I've got the backlights on and I'll zoom in so you can see the differences between the two. Hopefully it comes out on camera, but this one you can definitely tell has different screen technology. I'll go back and back on this one. A closer look at the mount on the Bolt 2 as compared to the mount on the Bolt 1, and they're not quite compatible. Well, this can go that way, that can't go this way. And the reason for that is because the Bolt 2 is a slightly larger unit, there's a bigger gap over here, that's slightly smaller there. The result is that the larger one can obviously go on the smaller mount. That works fine with a small little gap there. Oh, and by the way, if you've purchased a third-party mount, like something like that from K-Edge, the new Bolt 2 will also work on that just fine. But the older Bolt won't go on the new mount because of the gap along the top here. So that just won't work at all. A side-by-side of the ROAM mount versus the Bolt 2 mount. And you can see they're very, very similar. This is just smaller. Oh, and you can't obviously put the new bolt on the ROAM mount. That just doesn't work either. Too big, doesn't fit. Loading up the predefined Team Ineos climbing workout, you can see the differences between the original Bolt and the new Bolt 2 when it comes to colors and screen definition. Much easier to tell on this screen what's going on. Loading the same workout on the Roam, and you can see here, they're very, very similar with more screen real estate here than on this little baby over here. And the final difference between the old and the new, worth noting as I have them sitting here side by side, are the buttons. The original Bolt had the inset buttons, which were sometimes a little hard to find and press if you had some gloves on, and the Bolt 2 having the raised buttons, which are easy to find and easy to press. Okay, onto my hands-on experience with the Bolt 2. After having it for just 24 hours, we just skimmed in here with the embargo. It's all very familiar to me, the setup, the configuration, and the usage. It is the Element experience that I'm very familiar with. The resolution and the fonts on screen have been refined, and I do like that. It doesn't look like a paper ink screen. It looks like more of a detailed screen, so you can quickly see things. The routing and mapping for me on this unit worked fine. I created a route in Strava, I made sure it was starred, and because my Strava and Wahoo accounts are already linked, it synced over to this unit, and away I went with turn-by-turn navigation. Simple reroutes and more complex reroutes also worked just fine. I did further testing on that though today, which I'll show later in the video of how that works in real time. The color screen was very welcomed, especially in map mode when you're going past waterways and lakes and rivers and things. They're easy to identify and you can get your bearings a lot quicker than the black and white screen that we've had on the Bolt in the past. So that's a big tick from me on that one. The screen colors though, I did put to the test in a creative way. The Element Roam had only around 9 colors, I think. This is claimed to have 64 colors, but how can we really test that? Well, I thought long and hard about how we're going to display something on here, and there is a hack for the Varia radar, which this does support, to change the icon there. So I loaded up a little color palette of around 64 colors and loaded it on both the Roam and the new Bolt 2 and did a comparison. First up, loading the color palette onto the Roam, which is in the top left-hand corner there, and using the multi-car demo mode on the Varia radar, you can see it's reduced that color palette down to around 7 colors plus black and white. Putting the color palette next to one of those icons, and you can see it really has simplified those colors. Now onto the 64 color Bolt 2 screen, and that's provided a much better representation of the color palette that I've provided as the little icon. Side by siding those, there's no question at all. It does a much better job with these colors. Are these colors of any use? I'm not sure, but this does confirm the Bolt 2 has more colors on screen. So the screen on this unit is quite small. That is one of the features. If you're coming from the original Element, maybe a Garmin Edge 1000 series, or even the Roam, you will notice the difference. As with all Element units, the perfect view zoom works, so zooming into data fields and zooming back out will enlarge things based on the priority of your fields on screen. So that does work if you like a smaller screen and less fields. You can see things pretty easily that way. Out on the road, the Varia radar worked just fine. I also had heart rate, power data, and SRAM axis gear changes. And looking through that data using the DCR analyzer, everything recorded as expected there. Happy to report the GPS accuracy of my rides was absolutely spot on, putting me on the correct side of the road and routing me around those roundabouts the correct way here in Australia. In just a few moments, you'll hear this unit chirping away like a well-caffeinated budgerigar. The beeper on this is quite loud. I've also done some head-to-head tests with Navigate 2 from the head units themselves, and I selected Geelong, which is a town around 100 kilometers in that direction, and the Bolt 2 edges out the Roam for the computation of the route and the turn-by-turn coming up on screen. It's not too much in it, but the Bolt 2 does have a faster CPU, and it's noticeable. The battery drain from my test ride, well, it's hard to tell. You can see a little deflection point right here as I come back into town, and the Varia radar was beeping and chirping and lighting up things all along the way through town. So as I said, early days for my testing, only having this unit for around 24 hours. But in that 24 hours, I have been busy throwing a number of different scenarios at the Bolt 2 to see how it pans out. Now here's me this morning driving the route, or the predefined route, as I rode yesterday, and just throwing a few different scenarios at it for the reroute by taking a few wrong turns. So straight through this roundabout here, it's popped up with plenty of warning, telling me the correct exit to take, so number 2. And coming up here, I'm going to deviate from the course by taking a left-hand turn. Now, if you do know the suburb of Wendouree, it's quite important that you navigate out of Wendouree quite quickly. And this unit recognises I'm off course, reroutes me to Marigold Street. We turn right. And for my safety, we are on our way out of this little suburb. Two right turns and one left turn later, we're back onto the original course. So nothing too complex there, but all working as expected. Okay, jumping forward, and I'm on the White Swan descent. Definitely worth checking out if you're ever in the Ballarat area. And the oncoming route is to go left, up past the camels, but what I'm going to do is turn right. So I guess a little more complex reroute, which will take me back on course, all going to plan. So the LEDs are telling me to turn left onto Springs Road. Llama's there on the right. Wasn't planned. Of course it was. But instead of going left, here I turn right, forcing the unit to do a re-navigation. And within a few seconds, it's got me back on track, meeting up with where the course would have come out on this main road. Now it is telling me to turn down Longs Hill Road, but that's where I'm exiting, so I'll have to dive in a little closer to the specific route to see if I click the road a little bit too high up there on the map. Another reroute test will be here. The route is telling me to go straight forward. I'm going to take a right-hand turn around Black Hill because the car can't go on the bike path that I used yesterday. So right turn, and within a few seconds, the reroute is up on screen and routing me back on track in a few kilometres. Okay, over Black Hill and a left-hand turn onto Sherrod Street where something a little interesting happens with the unit. You'll see it here. Just goes blank and then comes back alive. So it's blank, back alive. And the navigation is fine. So I'm not quite sure what happened there. Something strange in the neighbourhood. Back to the beautiful Lake Wendouree, which is very vibrant on the coloured maps. And finally arriving at our destination as planned. The question will no doubt come up, Bolt 2 versus Roam, which should you go? And it's very similar to the original Bolt versus the Element. In fact, it's almost exactly the same. The Roam has a larger screen and 2 rows of LEDs and a slightly bigger battery life. And that was a list of attributes the original Element had on the original Bolt. So your call on this one. My early conclusions on the Element Bolt 2, it's a good refresh to the Bolt. Now that you can do turn-by-turn navigations with any mapping service, really bumps this up the tree when it comes to choosing which GPS to go with. The colours are also a very handy addition. Should you upgrade from the Bolt to the Bolt 2? Well, you've seen all the new features. In my opinion, that's a yes. Upgrading from the Roam to the Bolt 2? I don't think there's much in it. If you're looking at changing teams and maybe jumping the fence over to the Wahoo side of things, the choice is going to come down to screen size, price, and the amount of maps you want on the unit. If screen size really isn't an issue, I'll probably go the Bolt 2. This has performed a little better for me in my testing. Okay, we'll wrap it up there for today. As always, remember to do the rounds of the reviews that are out there. We all have our unique take on things, and it's important to support your creator as well. To support this channel, make sure you hit like and hit subscribe, and do the same for the other channels that you also view. Thanks for watching.